Welcome to the Nonfiction Writers, podcasting in a great way. I'm Ryan Aber from newsok.com and the Oklahoman, joined by Jason Kersey and a special guest today, former Oklahoma coach Barry Switzer. Coach, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. You guys, you call this plagiarism, or you've stolen my copyright or my patent on that? I have two fiction writers and Barry. There'll be no Barry bumper stickers, and there'll be no radio show called Fiction Writers. That's mine. Okay.
All right. First of all, wanted to ask you about that. When and where did you start calling reporters fiction writers? How did that come about?
Well, it's happened since the beginning of time. Since there's been newspapers or people that have covered sports in writing inaccuracies. Let me be kind to you guys. Writing very liberal inaccuracies and creating fiction, as I call it, and it always amused me, and I had fun with it because many times there were articles written by people that I never even talked to these guys, and they would contribute quotes to me. At least guys would call today and say, well, I talked to him. Yeah, we talked to him. Probably didn't talk about that subject, but then they were able to write whatever they wanted to write because they did have a conversation with me. But, that's one thing about electronic media, and this. Hopefully you guys are recording this, and everybody take what I say in context. But, truly there are people back in an era years ago. I don't say that today, and I'm sure it exists today. But there were people that took certain liberties to say things that weren't accurate and weren't true, and they had agendas, and they write what they want to portray and put out there, and those are obviously fiction writers, as I call them. And so, it was just something I did with tongue-in-cheek most of the time, but most of the guys that were good to me around here that knew me because I helped them do the job. I always had a philosophy that you guys are trying to do a job, and I try to help you do it. And I will, as long as you're fair, I will help you get it done. I don't ask you to be for me or against me. Just be fair and be a nonfiction writer when you talk to me. Okay?
Sounds good, Barry.
Hey,
okay.
you talking about people that covered your team. I know that you had a pretty good relationship with our man Bob Hersom. I wonder if you could talk to us about what you remember about him.
Well, I think that all the old-timers, not just Bob. Bob was a great guy. I had a great relationship with him because he covered Oklahoma. There were many, many writers for PubCo, and there were many writers for Tulsa World. One in particular, Bill Connors, I was very close to because Bill, the sports editor over there, renowned writer, who's deceased today, but Bill covered me when I was playing at the University of Arkansas. He's an OSU graduate, and yet he was one of my closest friends, and became one of my closest friends. He covered me when I was a player at Arkansas. When I was an assistant at Arkansas, we established that relationship, and it carried on when I came to Oklahoma. But I had a great one with Hersom. I had a lot with the other guys. I only had one run-in with a PubCo writer, and that was a guy that I had to practice one day, and all the writers were there. Tulsa World is back when they had, I think, the Oklahoma Journal. I think a guy named Al Ashbright was a sports editor for the Oklahoma Journal. Yeah. And a guy named Walt Giroux ended up, I think, writing in Texas somewhere else. It didn't last very long here. But anyway, I asked them when they're at practice, they're in my house, and I asked them not to disclose something when they get to come to practice. And I'd asked them not to report a position change we had made, and we were getting ready to play Texas, and it was very important for them to know I had to take a left defensive tackle and put him on the right side. So it's a foreign position, a different stance, a different hand on the ground. He's going to be reacting to he wasn't getting many reps at that position because he had to move there the week of because of an injury, and therefore what happens is he writes in the paper, we made the move, so-and-so will be playing the other sideline. And I was totally shocked. And he's the only writer I called the PubCo and said, this guy can't cover me anymore. I will not talk to him. I will not have anything to do with him. He can't come to practice. And if he shows up, he'll not get anything like me or my coaches. And because they've already been instructed to, and I'm damn sure not talking to him again. So anyway, that was the only problem I had. Is I think that you do when you come into someone's house and they ask you not to do something, I think if you've been fair and open with them all along, then one time occasion you ask them not to reveal something, you ought to grant that. And in this case, it wasn't.
Yeah.
You talked about some of the things that people wrote that just weren't true at that time, and obviously it was easier to get away with some of those things with the lack of internet access and recordings and things like that.
Sure.
What's the story that either you saw or you heard about?
Well, let me just go into this. I was talking and more reflection about me, but really, truly, it wasn't about me. It was about the program. There were a few personal things that were attached on me, either written that were not true, but mostly it was about our program. I had writers, national writers, that wrote about things. Anytime anyone wanted to throw something, a flippantly negative remark or disparaging remark about college football, they just throw Oklahoma in there. And all of a sudden, that we're in there, and then they make some other remarks about our program and people. Yet they've never been here, met on our campus, those writers. They've never talked to me. They've never talked to any of the players they talked about. And yet they took that liberty to paint us in a negative painting or portrait, and then that wasn't fair. So it's not just me in particular. It's about certain things that were written over a period of time that really weren't true, and they had no reason to believe it was true because, hell, they weren't here. They were getting things third and fourth hand, and most of those times those things have kind of take a different spin by the time they get to the fourth or fifth guy.
You know, just talking about that, kind of moving into, I when Bob was about to break your record, I asked you, I remember I interviewed you and asked you about the difference in personality between you and Bob, and that sort of shows itself, I think, sometimes in the media policies. Do you think that things were so much more open when you were the coach? Is that a result of just the time, just this being a different time, or do you think that the difference in personality plays into that too?
I think a combination of both. I think that today you don't have the technology, and your people can film and go out and do things and reveal things to someone that they shouldn't, but without them ever knowing what that other person was taped or recorded. We all have that ability now in our pockets when we walk onto a campus or onto a practice field or up in the sitting stands. I can understand why coaches are a little bit more paranoid. I was influenced by the fact that we didn't have that type of technology at that time. But the other was this, is that my offense, there's nothing to keep secret about my offense. Everybody knew what I was going to do. I only ran about 5 or 6 plays, and we ran the same offense whether I was on the -1 or the +1. It was the same plays. And they had to have the ability and the talent to stop us. They had to film. So there was no secrets. We had nothing to hide, really. Yeah. There might be other personnel changes. There would be things in the kicking game that we wouldn't want people to see, but most people didn't know what people are sitting up there didn't know what the hell they were looking at anyway. Ever see the subtle changes that were occurring. But, it was a philosophy and a time, and I never was paranoid as some coaches were. And I had them on my staff, too, that wished we'd close practice. I had Tim Donnan, who was my offensive coordinator. He all the time wanted to have the damn practice closed, and I'd laugh at him. And, we just continued to do what we always did.
Moving to football a little bit, what was it like for you to see the way that the Sooners came together last year and the way they were able to play in the Sugar Bowl?
Well, I think that I looked at it, and from the first series, I realized then what our game plan was, and what we were willing to do is that most people, if you understand Alabama's offense, they're a 2 tight end offense. They run the ball first. They hammer you with great running back, and 1 back set with 2 tight ends with 2 flankers both sides. Well, they make you play a 4 deep secondary, right? Because they got 2 tight ends, they got 2 quick receivers both sides, a flanker both sides. Okay, well you got to play corners over the flankers. Then that means you got to play basically a 2 deep safeties because you got 2 tight ends can run post routes and flag routes right straight down the field. So you got to basically line up with a 4 deep look. and play a 7-man front forcing unit. Well, that makes it man-on-man up front against the big offensive line with a great running back coming at you, and then play action passes off that to their tight ends and flankers. So it's a great philosophy, and it's basically what we used to do. We run the football first, then through it. Alabama's that way too. Well, what happens is we go out and we drop down drop our strong safety down from 4 deep. We kick over to a 3 deep look, and we go to an 8-man front, and we play shades out of an 8-man front. We got every gap covered. So we're saying, you're not going to run the ball, quarterback, you need to throw it. And we're going to rush the hell out of you. Oh, that's what happened. That was the game plan, and all of a sudden, Alabama threw it the first play. You remember he hit the hitch when we showed them a 3-deep look. When they hit to the left, they hit the flanker out there on the left, 15-yard gain. Fine, we gave them that. They're going to hit some of those, but we're going to come after you. Ended up, we had 7 sacks. I don't know how many turnovers, 4 interceptions. I don't know what the turnover ratio was, but you only get the ball 11 or 12 times a game. But when you cause that much havoc for an offense, you're going to get your ass beat, and that's what we did to them. We were willing to gamble that we were not going to play them balanced in the 4-deep secondary like most people do, go up there and try to play them man for man. We gambled and said, hey, you beat us quick, well, by golly, we're going to have a chance to beat your butt. And we did it, and we did it getting after them and giving them some looks they didn't see. We did some things offensively they weren't prepared for, and we gained a tremendously out of that win because we got a quarterback now that it knows he's got the job. He's not trying to win the job. He's got tremendous confidence, and we're got a playbook now that every quarterback on the team can run. Every quarterback we have, all 4 of those guys can run the same playbook, which makes it great to coach. And I think that we've got a lot of question marks, and obviously we could be a lot better if everybody could play that's supposed to have been able to play. But, it should be an exciting year. We know we're going to be favored every game we play. We were healthy we were last year, I think. Maybe we're underdog at once other than Alabama. But, we're better than everybody we're playing. But that didn't mean you go win. We were better than Texas last year. We didn't win. So, but we got to go out and make it happen the day you play them. And I think the fact that we're a better team. We've gained so much from the last year's experience. The players are better. We got a chance to be really good, and I'm excited about watching it.
And you talked about the reasons that OU's defense had success against Alabama. How does that translate when they get back into the Big 12? And obviously, you're seeing different kinds of offenses.
Well, you got to line up how offenses line up. If an offense lines up in a running formation, you need to play the run first, and secondary is always going to play pass first. But you've got to stop the run. Every team knows you should go into football. Every defensive coach knows I got to stop the run first. There's no question. I don't care if they're spread offense or not. You've got to be able to handle the run. If you handle the run, then you got a chance to control the game, because if they can't run the football, they got to throw every down. Then you really got a good chance to get after them with blitzes and different coverages and things that give them a lot of problems if they can ever run the football. So, the game, you have to line up defense. So offensive evolves to make the forces defenses line up differently and change. But sometimes defenses have an opportunity to make a decision to how to play and make offenses do things that they don't want to do, like we did Alabama, because that quarterback at Alabama wasn't used to throwing 40 times a game. He's not that type of quarterback. And but they damn sure run the ball 40, 50, 60 times a game if you line up their balance against them.
You obviously had success coaching in college and in the NFL. I'm curious if you had a chance to watch Johnny Manziel the other night, and how you think his skills are going to translate into the program, because it seems like the speed of defenses is kind of catching him off guard a little bit.
Well, the speed of the game, no question, is he's going to face something he's never seen before. That speed is a key that he will have to adjust to. But Johnny Manziel, even though I called him an arrogant little prick a year ago, and I think he's trying to prove me right every day. But what happened is that I also said that Johnny Manziel is the most dynamic quarterback I've ever seen in college. His numbers he put up against good opponents, good defenses. The competition he played against, his numbers were fantastic. I mean, they just is unbelievable, mind-boggling. This guy was that good. Then when I watched him play, he was special. He is really a specially talented quarterback in college. How's that translate to this level? Well, first of all, he's got to. You don't win at that level without your teammates respecting you and liking you. You only got 53 on the squad. He's got a lot of work to do in that area. He's got to have guys that surround him that believe in him and care about him, and because it's a close-knit group, and they're all for one and one for the other. It's not the Three Musketeers; it's the 53 Musketeers there, and those guys resent if you're not doing what they're doing, willing to bust your ass and do the same things they're doing. They'll let you know. They won't be. Coaches won't have to worry about it. Players do it. Players want to win. They want to compete, and they come from all different colleges and different cities all over this country. So they don't have anything. Johnny Manziel, they don't give a damn whether they won the Heisman or not. So those guys, whether you're from Alcorn A&M or Jackson State or USC, those guys are going to let you know how they feel about, especially about the players that are competitors. But Johnny, it's too early to say what he's going to do. It really is. I can't evaluate. He hadn't played enough. Let's let time play itself out. Let's let, and they're not very good to begin with, but let's let it play out, and then they'll see how he does. So I can't tell you whether he'll do it or not, but coming out of college, he's good as, he was good and talented. Think about this. The guy that won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson. Yeah. Russell Wilson is not as good as Johnny Manziel. and yet they won a Super Bowl. But they had a good football team. They had people surrounding them. They played as a great unit, a great team, had great chemistry, great enthusiasm. Russell is a team player. He's a team guy first, and he proved that. You can tell it the way he carries him. He didn't have Johnny Manziel's talent.
Yeah. The other night when he lost his cool and flipped off the other sideline. I mean, is that a bad sign that he's already letting people get to him?
I think people do that. I think players do that all the time. We've done that. I bet you've done that to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But let me say this. If he thinks any other quarterback that has ever played in the NFL had somebody say something to him, now think about that. Just because they said something to him, supposedly he flips the guy off. Now think about that. You think Aikman and Montana and Fouts, all these guys through their careers didn't have some wise ass pop off and say something to incite them? Now think about it. You got to have thick skin. You got to shake it off. You got to understand, hey, that's not part of this game, and it doesn't have a thing to do. That's totally irrelevant amount of play. Go on. It didn't happen. Just go on and leave it alone. Now, I can't remember any of those guys I just mentioned giving the bird to anybody, and yet they've had remarks made to them before. I promise you they have.
Absolutely. And moving back to OU football a little bit, this offseason's been pretty wild between the positives with the announcement of the stadium renovation, the uniform changes, which got recruits and the players on the team fired up, and then some of the negative stuff with the questions that you sort of alluded to earlier. Can you remember an offseason for Oklahoma football that has just had this much stuff happen since this ended last year?
Since my year last year, it was an atomic bomb was dropped here. What are you talking about? These guys haven't experienced anything. You got to wait till they had a rape and a doping and a shooting within about a 2 months period. And no, it's what's happened here. It's tragic. I really think about Joe Mixon here. I met the kid the other day the first time. He walks up and introduced himself to me. The way he carried himself and presented himself to me, I was very impressed with. I'd never talked to him before. I was over at practice. He was up by himself working out, and I happened to walk by the training room, and he had come out, and he said, "Coach, I'm Joe Mixon," and I told him I wished him well. I hope we get through this thing and he makes the right decisions as he moves forward here. Hopefully he has. I understand he's gone to class. That means he's here. He's going to have to redshirt wherever he goes. If he transferred, he's got a red shirt, and it probably will end up helping him. I didn't like Trammell's article the other day about what Trammell said about you always be the guy, always be the guy. That's not fair because you guys, first of all, yeah, he hit a woman, but I'm going to tell you what, she hit him, slapped him, spit him. We don't know what was said. We'll see a film and maybe. But I see how a kid reacts all of a sudden. You know, when, in today's culture, I can see that. But it's wrong. But at the same time, you know, I think there's a double standard here. Why isn't she kicked out of school? You know what? She started the altercation. She's a student. She's got a pretty good. You look at her record, as I'm told, she should have been dismissed prior to this. You know, but it's you know, it's subjective, and that's a question that's raised. You know, Joe shouldn't have done what he did, and he's paying a hell of a penalty for it. What's she paying? She's paying nothing for it. But I know she got hurt, but and I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry it tragically happened for both of them, but I got it did, and he's going to pay a hell of a price. But I don't think he should always be remembered as the guy that hit the girl. What if he wins 2 Heismans? I think they'll think the Heisman will replace that. And when he's a first-round draft pick. But anyway, you know, that's another story. It's just my opinion, and it doesn't mean a damn thing anyway.
All right.
You guys take care.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you too, Barry. Thanks for joining us and taking the time this morning. You have a good one.
Take care.
All right, that's all the time we have today for the Nonfiction Writers Podcasting in a Great Way. Thanks to Barry Switzer for joining us and Jason Kersey, my co-host. Check us out next week when OU opens the season on Saturday against Louisiana Tech. We'll come back with 2 podcasts on Tuesday and Thursday, one looking at OU, one looking at Louisiana Tech. Thanks for joining us, and have a great week.